That's my daughter too, but daughter the same. So so why don't we get started? We'll get started. So welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I know a lot of people are going to be pouring in throughout the show. I'm Dale Caldwell. I'm a professor and executive director of the Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and very, very excited to have someone who's becoming a friend and now hopefully a partner with FDU, Jo Colontonio, the executive coach and CEO of ProIgnite Development Partners. I promise you will learn something today and you will look at coaching in a new way. But first, who is the Rothman Institute? And so we always like to start, and many of you have seen this before, but you know, our mission is to promote, support, promote, and research entrepreneurship with a special focus on family and veteran businesses. And we really are adding urban businesses. We're really starting to get more into the community there. We wouldn't exist without our sponsors, the TD Bank Charitable Foundation, Provident Bank, the Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey. Tony Russo, who won't be with us today, has been a great partner and supporter of the Rothman Institute. One of the things we're most proud of is our Family Business Week, which is the fourth week in October every year, and the website's Family Business Week. What we're trying to do is encourage people really throughout the year, but certainly on that week, to do a special celebration of family businesses, which were really the backbone of business around the world. In addition, one of the things that I have is actually a couple of TV shows now. One is Family Business World. The other is Entrepreneur State of Mind. Turns out the show that I just started, I've done a few episodes, Entrepreneur State of Mind, that Jo had started at RVN TV. She was the first host of that show. And now it's on Roku TV. So if you have Roku TV and you look at RVN television, you'll get a chance to see some of the shows where we interview family businesses and entrepreneurs to really celebrate this, which is, I think, the most important part of America and who we are. These, of course, we originally called them Family Business Fridays, but we really expanded it. We call it FDU Rothman Now Zoom at noon. So we invite anybody that has a business mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset, to come and join us. One of the programs that we're most proud of, and really Sue and Maura have done a great job, is Veterans Launching Ventures. It's a program that's about 12 years old. We service veterans and their immediate family members. This latest class is from about 20 different states, a few different countries, and we help them go through the business planning process and then support their business development in the future. And so veteranbusinessworld.com has some information about that. And then this recording will be on our YouTube channel, the Rothman Institute of Entrepreneurship YouTube channel. We have a couple hundred videos. We have videos from the Family Business World TV show. We have some of our old speeches at Rothman, and we have our business insights. This will follow up in the business insights. So I encourage you to go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to us. We guarantee there will be information on that will be of real value to you as you go forward. One of the things that we're most proud of, and Sue Slavin has taken the lead, and Sue, as I understand it, we're going to open registration today, is our New Jersey Family Business of the Year Awards, where we celebrate the most dynamic family businesses. We have a category called New Family Business of the Year. Laura Mashtala from Black Swan Espresso in Newark, where this wonderful business and wonderful person won the New Family Business of the Year. Our family businesses with self-reported sales of under 10 million, Mikula Contracting, Dennis Mikula, and our family businesses of over 10 million, as someone we've known for many years, Mike Seitel and Norwalt Design. So if you know a family business that is incredible, people who've done amazing things during the pandemic, please go to the FDU Rothman website and submit a nomination. We want as many nominations as possible. One of the other things that we created is called Entrepreneur Zones, where in urban communities, we're really trying to get tax credits and other things to support the growth of entrepreneurship. We're able to get the governor and the governor's office, NJEDA, to establish a committee called the NJEDA Entrepreneur Zone Working Group that I have an honor of chairing. And at 2 p.m., we have our second meeting today. So very, very excited about that. We've written a number of articles around family, small businesses, and other things. So I encourage you to look at that. One of the things that I don't mention all the time is that I wrote a book on influence. And so it's becoming more important. And this idea of influence is really leading to our discussion today. So this book, Intelligent Influence, where we talk about 4 steps to really help leaders and organizations move forward, and that we do what we do, think the way we think, and accomplish what we accomplish because of influence. And so one of the concepts that builds on this is this idea of coach leader. And a graphic that I've developed here is that for all of us to realize these circles of influence, where it's you in the middle, you have these inner circle, a close circle of friends who have deep influence. You have a social circle, a community circle, and a global circle. And so often we don't realize that what we do and how we think, and even programs like this, influence us to change our mindset. And so coaching is all about really understanding that for you. But this idea of coach leadership is really the idea of looking at your employees. And the employees have a very different influences, but they have the same circles. And so in order to lead, you really have to understand their influences, and you really have to be a coach. And a lot of people have heard about coach. They know football and basketball and baseball coaches, but executive coaching, as you'll learn from Jo, who is really just a master at this, is something much, much, much more important and significant. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Jo Colontonio.
Thank you.
And I know you have some slides you want to share, so you should be able to share them.
Yeah, I have some slides, and I'll tell you, you gave me a great segue. Let's see how I can do this, because you did give me a great segue to jump around a little bit in my slides when you were talking about leadership and influence. So thank you very much for having me here today. My organization is Ignite Business Partners. And we are an executive coaching, consulting, and training organization that specializes in leadership development and organizational culture. And we like to say that we build extraordinary leaders, teams, and organizations from the inside out, which fits so nicely with your sphere of circles, because we're really talking about leading from within, or I'll use terminology a lot, the insides outs of leadership. My background is somewhat diverse. I have degrees in economics and business and an MBA in marketing. I am also a PCC certified coach with the International Coach Federation. And most currently, I'm excited to announce that at the beginning, I guess in March of 2021, one of my training programs was certified by the International Coach Federation, which really is the gold standard in the industry. So it was nice accolades for everyone here on my team, myself and my team, to really get to that point and to be acknowledged. Some of the organizations that I've worked with before run the gamut. I used to say my background, my previous career was I had a marketing agency, and I would say I worked with everyone from the corner gas station to Fortune 500 companies. And I still do so. I do still so today. And I do have a sweet spot in my heart for family businesses, since you mentioned that, since our family has one. So today we are really going to talk about igniting a new breed of leaders. This is something that's been going on over the past decade, but it's becoming more and more present as we've gone through this as we've gone through this COVID pause, as we say, right? One of the icebreakers that I often do in my training programs, that I often did during COVID, was to say, what was your power of the pause? So think about those first 3 months. And what takeaways did you have from that power of the pause? And I'll tell you, Dale, it really made them look at those inner circles. Right. More so than the external circles. Right. So the old breed of leadership, of command and control, is of the leader who knows best and has all the answers, or as I say, like to think that they do. We all know leaders like that, right? That is not where we need to be today, especially as we transition out of COVID as well, because our teams look different. We're working differently. The virtual workforce and virtual communication is here to stay. things will be different. It's not going to be a new normal. It's just going to be what's normal for us right now. And with technology, that allows us to work with individuals all over the globe and not necessarily have our team in a huddle. So really focusing on this coach-driven leadership is especially important as we transfer out of COVID. So a coaching management style is all about collaboration, right, between the leader and the team members that empowers everyone, right? It places not only the leader, but also the team in the driver's seat for performance. Because as we know, when we really peel it back, all motivation is intrinsic.
So Jo, one of the things that I think is important when you go from that command and control is that, why are people different now? And I often say that the internet has given people more knowledge and more independent. I mean, back in the day, people were like mushrooms. They were in a dark room and the leader, they trusted the leader implicitly and everything the leader said was right. Now they're, they've eaten, the apple, the snake's apple, and they see the world. So you can't order people around the way you did. You've got to have this coaching management stuff.
Well, believe me, there are people that try to do it. They're just not effective, right? And those organizations have high turnover because we know the statistic is very, very high that people don't leave their jobs, they leave their bosses.
Exactly.
And I don't recall that statistic off the top of my head, so I don't want to say anything that isn't right. But I know I've used that in other presentations. So yes, very important. I love that you brought up trust, because trust alone, which is very big in coach-driven leadership, trust alone can change the trajectory of an organization.
Absolutely.
It is so important. Think about your colleagues and your friends who were worried about their job during this COVID crisis, even though they had no reason to worry. I had C-suites, vice presidents worried, young vice presidents, that they were going to be let go because that communication was not coming down properly. And they all really are still there. So when we look at this model of old culture and new culture, old culture was fear-based, it was excess, it was controlling in nature, a lot of imposed rules. With this new coach-driven leadership culture, we're seeing inner values, trust, sufficiency, sustainability, because it's a change that happens in your organization and it's not just for the minute, it sustains itself. Think about, Dale, the sales teams back in the day where they would have sales training and they'd meet their quota. They'd have somebody come in, rah, 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 they'd meet their quota, but they couldn't repeat the process after the person left. So a coaching mindset is the new psychology of success. I swiped that from our Mindset is the New Psychology of Success book, Dale, we were talking about the other day. Exactly. And awareness is really the first step to any change. So this type of leadership is transformational for you, the person, and for your team. And a lot of the work that I do in my group programs, you come different. You come out different on the other side.
And Jo, as we're talking, let's make it help people understand that this applies. You don't have to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You could have a single shingle restaurant. You could have and this applies to everybody in your life. It applies to parenting. It applies. So everybody listening on today, there's an application of this.
Yeah.
And you think of yourself in this way. I want to make sure people understand that.
Yeah. And you know what? I will jump around just because I'm always over prepared. I'll just jump around to sort of touch on that because I know that we have some small business owners and entrepreneurs on the line. So when I talk about leadership, as Dale said, leadership is our ability to influence, right? That's a John Maxwell quote. But I also believe that leadership is your ability to interact with and influence others. It's that extra step. And you don't have to be in a large organization. You could be partners in a business. The other thing is leadership is also about how you interact and influence yourself.
Right.
I mean, we're really, this is going a little bit deep, but maybe for them to get this concept, it would help. So that influence can be positive or negative, consciously or unintentionally, and it could be minimally or massive. So the truth of the matter is that we're all leaders by appointment or default. And the question becomes, how will you lead?
Right. Right.
The safety on the playground is a leader. In your role as a mother, you're a leader. As a secretary, you're a leader. As a CEO, you're a leader. It's not confined to corporate walls. So it really becomes, how are you showing up?
Yeah.
And how effective are you in managing your organization and your team? Because that directly influences performance and your bottom line. And we have information and ROI on that out the gazoo. I use a formula similar, Dale, and this is a deviation of Tim Galloway in Mastering the Inner Game, or tennis, the tennis book, Mastering the Inner Game of Tennis. This is slightly different, but it's, what is your performance? Your optimal performance is really your potential minus interference. So what's interfering? What's interfering with if we think about Dale's model of those circles, that's where the work is done. And by really looking at, in coaching, you are looking at enhancers and distractors of your own performance. That conversation, if you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not going to get that client, you're not leading yourself to success. Coach-driven leadership would say to you, what's another way I can look at that? Right. So when we go back to this model of, do you think that gave them a little bit more in depth of that change that we're looking for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
I wasn't going to go that much into the weeds, but I felt like it gave me a little segue.
I think it's important. I have to step away for a second.
When we look at coach-driven leadership, that's my coworker. Coach-driven leadership unlocks potential and delivers the highest level of performance. This style is underpinned by clear skills and ethics: partnership, collaboration, belief in potential, trust and safety, intention, powerful questions, active listening, feedback, and learning and development. And for those of us, because I have a family business in my background, but for those of us that are on the call, and I don't know how many they are, but that are in family businesses, think about these points. How much are they really used when you add the emotion of family into your business? Collaboration, belief in potential. There's a lot of blaming, right? There's a lot of not taking responsibility for your actions. So part of coach-driven leadership encompasses this. And
Jo, could you go back? Because I don't know if you're going to talk about, but this active listening is such a powerful thing.
Oh boy.
That especially with families, because most of us aren't, we're not active listeners. So I don't know if you're going to, could you talk about that? Because that's a tool. If you get nothing else out of today, understanding active listening and applying it this afternoon, you'll find a big difference. Talk about that, please.
Yeah. So active listening is listening to understand. Most of us spend 80% of our time talking, and we're not listening. And I'm not going to be able to reference who the quote is by, but it's something like, you can't learn something new if you're always talking. Basically, like, how are you going to learn something new? Excuse me, I'm just going to shut this door. I apologize.
Yeah, and so the reason I highlight that is that, there are 4 levels of listening, and you want to be proactive, but really take the time. And so this is something you can implement immediately. When you talk to people this afternoon, I would say be quiet and really understand not just what they're saying, but why they're saying, what's the context of what they're saying, why, what's the empathy, and it's a learned competency, but you've got to practice it. And, and you will find that will give you answers to things you never thought you would get.
Very much so. And there are 3 levels of listening, and I won't go into that right now, but also remember that 80% of communication is body language. So pay attention to the social cues that you're getting. Active listening involves paraphrasing. It involves inquiry. It involves asking open-ended questions. And it involves really listening to understand what the other person is saying. And through that conversation, acknowledging and validating that you heard that. So like they say, there's a great book, Fierce Conversations, and they define a fierce conversation as really coming out from behind yourself and stepping into the conversation and being fully present is so powerful. And just tapping in, Dale, to what you were saying about technology and all the information, we are inundated with information right now.
Yep.
We are multitasking like crazy. And how many of you are sitting at your desk and maybe you're writing something down, someone comes in to tell you something and you don't even look up? So it's habit, right? The first step to any change is awareness. So hopefully through going into a little bit of active listening, you'll have that first step to awareness.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. And I want to call, there's one of the friends of Rothman, Janet Werner, is there, who's an expert in dialogue and really, and that's about listening and speaking. And so, I mean, that skill is so important, but thank you. Thanks for covering.
Very important. I spend a lot of time in organizations working just on communication and active listening. Sometimes almost a full day, and then with exercises. So, the ways that coaching can support organizational development or a coach style of leadership. These are just some of the things that it can bring and have an impact to. But ultimately, the impact is on the bottom line. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the human capital and if you're not working efficiently yourself, even as an entrepreneur, it's going to impact your bottom line. And think about the entrepreneurs and small businesses, they're chief cook and bottle washer, right? They're answering phones, they're invoicing, they're doing everything. So working with an executive coach, even one-on-one is wonderful in just sort of transitioning you into how you want to show up in your business and reach your business goals. So partnership and collaboration creates self-confidence and self-governing teams. And that self-confidence can be created between a solopreneur and a coach as well, or a mentor. And Dale, I know you do a lot of that. At the root of coach-driven leadership really is emotional intelligence. And I also think that your graphic alluded to that as well. It's a set of emotional and social skills that establish these 5 things. It's perception, expression, maintaining relationships, right? How you're using emotional information in an effective way. Let's go back to that family-owned business. There was a lot of yelling and screaming in my family-owned business, right? There was a lot of frustration. So a little bit different model when you look at a coaching leadership style. You are bringing in social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, and relationships, right? Very similar to the graphic that you used. The good news is that neuroplasticity is your superpower, right? So all of the coaching models and the work that I do, and Dale, I'm sure that you do as well, is based in neuroscience, because we know that change can happen. And it's really about going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And
Joe, so that term and neuroplasticity, does it just means the mind can change, or what is that?
Yes. So neuroplasticity, that is basically how we think. We create neural channels in our brain, okay, think of like fight or flight. You have a thought, you go right to that second thought. And that muscle or that neuroplasticity, that nerve, that spark, neurons that fire together, stay together, or stay together, fire together, stay together.
Right.
So what you want to do with doing neuroplasticity work through coaching is begin to create a new neural pathway. Mm-hmm. And as this one strengthens, this one gets smaller. Right. And we look at that through the concept of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. And with some smaller organizations, we have a lot of fixed mindset, right? Because at somewhere along the line, they had a skill or a hobby, right? They're passionate about it and they started a business. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was that grit and the resilience that they built on their own, right? So we hear a lot of my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. That is not the coach-driven leadership. Mm-hmm. Coach-driven leadership in your business, whether it's a small, medium, or large business, is yes, hard work, but you're knowing that you can always improve, right? Look for opportunity, look for possibility. There's no such thing as failure, just opportunities to learn.
Well, Jo, one of the things that I say is that there's a big difference between a small business leader and an entrepreneur. And what happens is a lot of businesses became comfortable. The pandemic has made them less comfortable, but they were in this fixed mindset. I'm doing the same. I'm making enough to pay my bills. I'm not looking to change. I don't want to buy. I don't want to grow. But now if you don't grow, you're falling back. So this growth mindset applies to even successful business folks. And so it's important.
Yep.
And it's often very hard to do it on your own. That's where a coach, kind of coaching and coach leader helps you transition from fixed to growth.
And a lot of what we're seeing, Dale, is, as we're using this, we're framing this as the coach leader, right? Or coach-driven leadership. But just remember that no matter what the size is of your business, you're still a leader in your business, in your life, right? So again, it comes to how are you going to show up and how are you going to grow? If you don't grow, you're going to die and you're going to go out of business.
Jo, we have a question. I want to just going back about the listening. Yeah. And someone just wanted an example of a kind of active listening.
Sure.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dale. Tell me something.
I'm planning to play tennis this weekend.
So I understand you're planning to play tennis this weekend.
Yeah. I'm going to have fun, hopefully.
Yeah. Are you excited? Sounds like you're ready to have some fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the weather will hold up.
Okay. So that was very benign, but in my paraphrasing and in that conversation, I was letting Dale know that I heard that he was looking forward to playing tennis. Now, imagine if he was talking about something in business, like my revenue is down for the third month in a row. And he might spend some time just venting about it. You want to say it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal to be upset. We've gone through COVID. This was a catastrophe. No one expected this, right? So Dale's shaking his head. So he's giving me that social cue that he's active listening to me, even though he isn't saying anything.
And Jo, and to add on to that is that when the context of how people say that, the context, you said, you talked about, so you lost revenue and it's not about losing the revenue. I mean, how do you feel about it? How do you do that?
It's how do you feel about it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's
because ultimately as coaches, which Dale and I both are, we know that every business problem peels back to a personal or life problem. Mm-hmm. It just manifests differently. Mm-hmm. So, and it really comes back to emotional intelligence, communication, relationships, and that relationship with others and yourself. So in a coach-driven leadership, it's about leading yourself, your team, and your organization. It could also be leading your spouse, your family, and your life. So we are not silos standing in the middle of nowhere. We're human breathing beings. And organizations need to be able to look at us as that now. We are not numbers anymore.
Well, Joe, and so Ron West, who is the chair of our accounting department at the Silberman College at Fairleigh Dickinson University, is on the show, and so he's in charge. But and Ron is very emotionally intelligent, and he understands that even when you're doing taxes, you want to hear the person, you want to understand, you want to really kind of coach people through that process. So there's people that say accounting, you don't need this in accounting, it's all about the numbers. No, it's about the people.
No,
and how the numbers relate to people. And I think that's
exactly. So, I mean, if you're speaking with your accountant and you're upset, don't you feel heard if they express empathy?
Exactly.
Don't you feel heard don't you feel connected to them if they're trustworthy, if they're optimistic, if they're making solutions focused suggestions, right? So when we use a coach style of leadership, we're checking in with ourselves, right? It's about self-awareness and self-assessment and that inner voice. I call it the already always talking voice. And whatever it's telling you isn't true. It's usually the I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'll never get this loan, whatever. So that self-awareness piece, that social awareness with others, that relationship, and then how are you self-managing all of those things? So as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, it's really about leading yourself to success. Leadership is definitely top down, but it's also bottom up. So you have to listen and have input from your team. Maybe if you're a small business, maybe it's some of the people that you collaborate with, or vendors or suppliers that you do business with. A lot of people, supply chain has been crazy this year with getting the right things. People have had to come together. So the vantage point for coach-driven leadership is inward, outward, upward, and onward. That's just, it's kind of like you have to have the breakdown in order to have the breakthrough, right? This is just a slide I use in one of my training programs to really sort of get in the mindset. And Dale, you'll see a lot of the International Coach Federation wording on here, right? Curiosity and interest,
right?
Challenging perceptions and assumptions, being in integrity. One of the things that, just to give them a quick little tool, I always say that curiosity is a superpower. So think about if someone comes to you with, say, something negative, right? Like, say, tell me that you didn't like my presentation today.
Well, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like your presentation.
I can't believe you didn't like my presentation, Dale. I rearranged my whole schedule so that I could be on your show.
Right.
All right, tell me again you didn't like my presentation.
I didn't like your presentation today.
I'm curious, what do you think went well and what do you think didn't go as well?
And that flip, that opens me up to really talk about and explore what it is. And it may have been a misunderstanding, right?
But it also diffuses me.
Right.
It's my self-awareness.
Right.
When you, and small businesses, family-owned businesses come from a place of curiosity. Even if you have to start every sentence on a rebuttal with I'm curious,
right?
That will be all of your homework.
Yep.
I'm curious. Why do you feel that way? I'm curious. Why did you place that order and pay that much? Instead of, I can't believe you got ripped off by paying that much. So coming from a place of curiosity and interest and knowing that there's always something to learn, very much so coach-driven leadership. I mean, we could also say coach-driven businesses, Dale, because the methodology is the same. I think Dale just got frozen. I only have a couple more slides. I'm just showing you that the International Coach Federation is the gold standard within the coaching industry. And every year they do something called a PRISM Award. And anyone can be submitted for a Prism Award, Dale. This is something that I thought you and I could talk about, because there may be someone through Fairly or someone that goes through our program that we may want to submit. And they use coaching programs and training to shape their culture, address strategic goals, right? And make an impact that's measurable. And some of the organizations, there's my culture eats strategy for breakfast slide. Some of the organizations who've embraced this are listed on the screen.
Right.
So that is really, you know, sort of my spin on why this is so very, very important. Any thoughts, Dale, on how this really fits into your model?
Well, let me you know, tell the audience, and Ron is there, that we're in the process of exploring, and again, obviously need the dean's approval to do coaching, to have a coaching program tied with the Rothman Institute, because this is so important for entrepreneurs, for family businesses, to really begin to really, especially as you come out of the pandemic. You know, one of the realities is people are still dealing with emotional challenges of the pandemic, and you know, one of the terms that's become very popular is reboarding. You know, onboarding is when someone starts and you help them do, but now people are reboarding. They've been home all day. You know, they're going back to the office, and, you know, you're going to have to use a very different management style. And this is true with small businesses or big businesses. And it's a coach leadership style.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that.
A coach leadership style uses a lot of the stuff that the information that we discussed in the earlier slides, where you're coming from that. So in that example of someone being onboarded, right? We know that we're going to use some powerful questioning. We may do a survey and assessment. We may see what's the team thinking as a whole, right? And then we could come together and together with them in an alliance partner to make that transition easier. Maybe they don't want to come back full time. Maybe we see, because we're receiving information, we're actively listening, we're looking for feedback, right? Maybe we phase them in. Maybe we look at productivity, and I have a very large bank that's looking at this. They are seeing productivity increase from working at home than working in the office. So they've extended an extra year. They don't have their C-suite or upper echelon executives going back into corporate until at least 2022.
Really? Wow.
Because think about all the cost savings. I have attorneys, you know, maybe a 20-person practice, one of my clients, more productive with Zoom and Zoom meetings. So they're actually selling their large building, and they're going to just get a suite where they can have a boardroom if they need someone, and 1 or 2 offices. And the majority of them are working from home. So it's really about that partnership and collaboration, getting rid of that fear and establishing that trust in any situation for change.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. A lot of our family business members have said that the productivity, people in fewer hours are accomplishing more. And it just goes to show that, you know, this is transitioning the old style of not trusting folks. We assume you're not working until you prove otherwise. And companies need to really understand that people are professionals. They are trustworthy. They take their job very seriously.
Yes.
If they have the right leadership, you know, and that's what this is all about.
And Dale, just speaking to just that, what I've done with some of my organizations to cultivate trust and safety without seeming like we're micromanaging is that, again, depending on the organization, we have 3 types of meetings a week. One might be a check-in meeting. One might be problem solving, brainstorming. So it's keeping the teams coming together just for 30 minutes, right? First thing in the morning, and then they're going back. And the leader can spot if there's an issue. Now, it's creating that power and that alliance when you're having those meetings, that you're working together towards a goal, and establishing trust and safety is just super important for that.
Well,
because people fear change.
they fear change. And I think what you said, and people undervalue curiosity. One of the things I like to joke that because I have the TV show, I'm a professional question asker. And
I
so I
love
ask
it.
questions. I don't write down the questions. I don't do that. No,
Love it.
because I'm curious. I want to know, what do you do? Where are you from? What do you, and that curiosity. And I think more of us need to be curious. Now, some people, Joe, say, well, I got work to do. I'm too busy to be curious. I'm too busy to care about my employees. It's all about the work. And they have to realize that it is all about the people. And that the people will do that much more if you empower them to be stronger.
Yes.
And you listen to them and you hear them.
So when we come from a place of curiosity, Dale, right, we ask open-ended and empowering questions, right? So in our coach training program, we go into the specifics of how to ask those questions and what words to start off with, which I think is what helps to make you an excellent interviewer, because you have those skills. But for everyone that's listening, when you ask a closed-ended question, you are going to get a one-word answer. And then where do you go from there?
Right,
but if you ask an open-ended question, and then I use the acronym WAIT, why am I talking? Ask the question and zip it. People will tell you, they will give you a lot of information. And to me, that's a time saver, Dale. Because they're not going to go and repeat the mistake 200 times. Shut down the line, whatever's going to stop manufacturing, whatever's going to happen. So, as I said, I think that communication and collaboration, trust and safety are the core of this.
But even simple things. And so, so you ask somebody, did you finish the project? That's a yes or no answer. So you pin them in the corner. How are things coming with the project? That little different, I've been working on it, but there's something important, but you don't give them I didn't finish the project. Well, why didn't you finish the project? So you're going down a path of negativity, and this applies with family, it applies with work.
Yes.
And so those, and people don't realize how important these little things we're talking about. And it's a process. It's not some answer and say, okay, well, ask these 10 questions and you'll get everything. You've really got to read the people. You've got to know people, and you've got to be sensitive to the people you're with. And they're all different.
Yeah. So Dale, do you want me to give them a cheat sheet and they can all take a picture of the slide?
Yeah. Give them if you have one.
So I'm going to give you all a cheat sheet. Let me just pull it up because I didn't have it up.
And so often
a cheat sheet for questions. Don't use it in the classroom. This is just for
yeah. But it's amazing how important this stuff is, even in heavy finance, even on Wall Street and other places. And the world is changing. So that's why it's exciting to have you on. And I'm hoping, as I said, I keep saying this afternoon, try some of these things.
So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Let's see. Let me see how I can get this for you. I'm sorry, guys. I was let me put it back to normal, and then you can see it bigger. There we go. Oops. All right. So when we look at, this is what Dale and I are speaking about. Let me move you out of the way, Dale. There we go. I apologize for all the notifications. I didn't know I was going to pull this up, but I can't resist. So when we look at powerful open-ended questions, which is what Dale and I are speaking about, I'm going to show you a quick cheat sheet. But I love this quote: quality questions create a quality life. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers.
Great.
Think about that. So here is the cheat sheet. Open-ended questions, great questions are this whole long list of things. You guys can take a picture of this slide if you want. And here is your cheat sheet. So I use this, Dale. This is one of the slides I use in my training when we are, so the attendees in my class for one whole day, they're only allowed to ask open-ended questions. They can't say anything else. They can't paraphrase, they can't say anything else because you have to get them in that habit, right? So close-ended questions. Think about this. Dale, would you have lunch with me today?
Yes.
Did you get all your work done last night?
Yes.
Dale, when do you think we could get together for lunch?
Well, that's a great question. I've wanted to talk to you and wanted to really follow up on our conversation. And so you've opened me up to get more information.
Yeah. So maybe you might say, if you could also say, well, let's see, Joe, I have a meeting at this time. I have this time. And so then the listener is not hearing like no or yes,
Right.
being left flat. So starting open-ended questions with what, when, where, who, or if.
Mm-hmm.
And I like if because I use scaling questions with if. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but if you do this or if you do that, right? So it's when you're helping someone to problem solve. Now, so this is a slide from my coaching program. So I do not let new coaches question with why or how. So I would say as an individual or an untrained person, I would not use why or how. Instead of why, I would say, what were the reasons?
Right.
Because why can sound accusatory.
Right.
Why did you do it this way?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is very different than what are the reasons that you did it this way?
Yeah.
And how did you do that? The person may receive it as she thinks I did something wrong.
Right.
Like, what were the steps? So
Exactly.
everybody seems to love this slide as just try it with your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, Dale and I have only children, daughters. And when at this point, my daughter's 21 and she'll say, stop coaching me, mom. But I was able to do it till about maybe around 18. So you have a couple more years to go.
Right.
But tell me about it. Like, tell me about why you didn't get your homework done. What's going on?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Like-
my daughter didn't even know where we use this. But now you mentioned something called scaling. Explain to the audience what is scaling. You said you use if for scaling. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So a lot of times, let me see if I can find a slide on it that might make it easier. So I love scaling questions because it's sort of a great check-in for ROI of where your person is or what a person really wants. So for example, Dale and I may be talking about launching, let's say we're going to do a collaboration with a client. And so, and the client's my client, and I'm going to bring Dale in. And so Dale's thinking to himself, well, scheduling, right? How am I going to do this? All these other things. So Dale may say to me, Joe, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that this project's going to close in the next 3 months?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I may say about a 4. And that would give him information. He could
That's
then
cool.
say, when do you think we'll be able to put it together by?
Mhm.
So I use a scaling question to get commitment. I use scaling questions to get commitments on goals. So if
Mhm.
someone says they're going to do something, I'm going to go to the gym every morning. I'm going to wake up at 5:30 and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to run for an hour and do an hour of weights. That's my goal I want to set with you. Okay. How can I hold you accountable? Right.
Mhm.
So they tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that you're going to do that?
Mhm.
A 2. What would it take to get you from a 2 to a 10?
Mhm.
So putting a numerical value or using a scaling question gives you almost like a data point.
Right.
You know, an employee says they don't have a project done. On a scale of 1 to 10, where is it? It's an 8.
Mhm.
All right, great. Do you need any support with that? No, you kind of know that they don't. But if it's a 2, you need to step up, right? And figure out how you're going to support that.
Mhm.
So scaling gives me data, and then I can use that later on to hold that person accountable or that team, right? It also shows their own ROI in a very small way, but okay, so our first month of working together, you were at a 4, now you're at a 6, now you're at an 8. So it's commitment and accountability. That's how I use that.
So Joe, a lot of coaches are I spent much of my career as a consultant and then going through a coaching program to become, it's very, very different where you're
Yes.
listening. And so is there a time when you give direction to your coaching clients?
So what would the ICF say to that?
Well, they would say no, right?
They would say coaches don't give advice, right?
Right.
So I will answer that honestly. For me, in my role, I am a coach and a consultant. And so I am really clear when I have each hat on. There is an expectation in leadership development and consulting and working with these organizations that you are giving some advice, right? But in pure coaching, we do not. You don't give advice. In pure coaching, we do not give advice. Now, this is what I teach my students to do. And again, they don't get this till they're advanced. And the way that I actually use this, I use a tool called asking permission, right? May I make a suggestion? They're going to say yes or no. If they say yes, then I can say, well, these are some suggestions I have to increase productivity when it's in that coaching arrangement, right? So in coach-driven leadership, obviously there are times when you're going to have to take a more directive style, right? But that directive style also has the support along the way. Right. So say somebody is listening and then they say, well, this is interesting. And they look up a little bit about coaching and they may not want to be a certified coach, but they start doing this. How do you resist the temptation if if you want to hit somebody over the head, said, what are you, dumb? Don't you want to do this? Just do this. Yeah. How do you resist that temptation to not tell people to do something that seems so obvious? So it really comes down to personal development drives professional success. And it comes back to that, how are you showing up? Right? How are you showing up in your business? Are you organized? Do you have boundaries? Are you getting things done? Where's your profit? Do you need help? Do you need to increase your team? All of those are personal issues. They may look like business issues, but they're really not. Right. They're really personal issues. So a coaching style of leadership, and let me say this in a different way. I want to actually go as far as to say, because that coaching is a way of being. And I truly feel that skills in every area of my life have improved from having this foundation now. Right. And I didn't get it till about 15 years ago. I went back after grad school and did some work as you just recently got more involved in it or so. And it's just such a great skill set in any situation. Like I think it should be taught in schools. Well, did you have, I remember, first going to a course and, having a consulting background and they say, okay, well, don't tell them anything, just go and ask questions. And you ask them questions and you go through that process. And then they thank you profusely. Thank you. That was so great. And you feel like you didn't do anything. I just asked you a few questions and it really works. It's really an amazing thing. Because when you get into the foundation principles, right? The core competencies, which are the basis for all of my and Dale's work in the coaching arena. We assume that the individual, the coachee, the other person has all the answers. So think about the difference in telling someone what to do versus asking them how they want to do it. You're automatically getting a buy-in. And when we use coaching on ourselves and with others, we are changing that neuroplasticity in our brains. And to me, that's really important. The science behind it is important. The way that you ask questions triggers a different area of the brain, because sometimes we can't solve something using the same reasoning we've always used. That's why we are where we are,
So,
right?
so how,
Yeah, so
you mentioned coaching yourself. And so as we get closer to the end, what advice would you give folks out there to say, how do I coach myself? How do I, what do you
So I
think?
would say one of the most powerful tools I feel that for me, that I experienced was that tool of reframing. What about you, Dale? And I'll tell you all what that was. That was very powerful for me. Especially as a mom that was a business owner, where there was so much I was always looking at that opportunity cost, right? I need to finish this project. My daughter has a race, right? Which is it that you do? So it's like it's always that struggle. So to me, it's about the power of choice and just reframing that block, that where you are, to just get unstuck to reframe it. So a reframe would be, what am I going to choose to do? Coming from a place of choice is very powerful, because then you don't use the negative catabolic language, should have, would have, could have. I'm choosing to do this, or I'm choosing to do that, and I'm taking responsibility for my choice. So reframing, or looking at things in a different way, like if things might not be going your way, right? What's another way that I can look at this? A lot of times I come back to, it's just not meant to be, there's another opportunity out there. So reframing was a great tool for me. And I use that a lot with employees. What's another way you can look at that? What's another way what's a way that you can improve that process? So very much solutions focused reframing, I think for entrepreneurs, that's a big skill, because it's a bumpy road, when you're self-employed. I actually have a tool I can give everyone and put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, please. Yeah, if you have a
I can send it to you, and I can tell them how to use it.
Yeah, put it in the chat. I mean, I think as you do that, one of the things that becomes very clear with coaching is that you do have a choice. See, I think a lot of us think that we don't have choices to do stuff. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do it this way. But when you start to reframe it and really put it in a different context, you realize you have more choices, and that when you do stuff, good or bad, it's your choice to do it.
Yeah. So I can show you, for some reason, it's not letting me pull from my, it's not letting me pull from my computer. And I don't know why.
To copy it?
It looks like I have to pull it from Dropbox. I may have to move it because of the Zoom platform.
Okay.
But
yeah, so as Sue says, we're almost at time. We can just send it to everyone after the call.
Yeah, so, that's great. And just remember that it's the power of choice, and how are you showing up, and what does that look like? So I will tell you that when I did a cohort in the fall with a group of business people, they came from all different backgrounds, and two of them were interested in becoming a certified coach, two of them. The rest of them had no interest at all. It wasn't in their wheelhouse. They wanted the tools.
Right.
But by the time they got to the end, they all wanted to just be certified. Yeah. Because they felt like it was an important designation to have for them in whatever they were doing. It said something about them. So
it changes how people view their life and view other people and work with other people.
Yeah.
So well, I hope we're unfortunately at time. It always goes so quickly, and I hope the folks attending really had a sense to really begin to think about what coaching is, how they can reframe what they do, and how they think. So do you want to put your email in the chat?
Yeah. So coaching gets you from where you are to where you want to be. Yep. That's the best. And when you're working with a coach or doing training and coaching, it gets you out of that gap, because there's always a gap.
Yep. The Joe, you want to put in
Yep.
your email there. So everyone check the chat. You'll get Joe's email, and she is an amazing leader of coaching sessions. As I said, we may be offering this at Fairleigh Dickinson University, the Rothman Institute. We're very, very excited about that. And have a great weekend. And I'm asking you, this is the third time, try to use some of these techniques. Try to, with your family, with your friends, with your coworkers, and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, and I will give the worksheet that I'm going to give to Susan. You can change the title of it and use it with anything that you want. So it's about being an ideal leader, but you can change it to ideal parent, ideal boss. It's an ideal tool.
Wonderful.
And if anybody have any questions, tap into me or Dale and we can help you work through it.
Perfect. So Joe at ignitebusinesspartners.com. So
thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
I really
Take
enjoyed
care.
myself. I love talking coaching.
All right. Great job. So take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.